Hi, class. Sorry for that. Look, it wasn't working, so I had to reset everything, and so, yay, it's working. Let's talk about grammar today. We are in our guided reading packet, lesson 24, and we're looking at our grammar page, which is the first page, which is 343. It's comparative and superlative adjectives. Those are fancy words, but this really isn't difficult, so stick with me, and you'll be able to finish this page just fine. If you need to pause the video to get your packet, do that, and then you're going to follow along with me in the box. We'll talk about a few things. This is my sign. My head's in the way, but I'm sure some of you are wondering what it says. Okay, use a comparative adjective to compare two things. I want you to underline that part of the sentence, and I want you to circle comparative and compare to. I want you to circle those, so you're underlining and then you're circling those two things. Like so. When you underline things like that, you're training your brain to remember those specific things. So, comparative is comparing two things. And it's important to remember that it's just two. Because the rest of the sentence reads, and I'm going to keep going, a superlative adjective to compare more than two things. So now I want you to underline superlative adjectives to compare more and circle more than two things. Okay? So comparative is comparing two things. Superlative is comparing anything more than two. It could be 3, could be 4, could be 50. Okay? To form a comparative adjective, you add ER to the adjective, the short adjective, and then you use the word more before a long adjective. To form a superlative adjective, add EST or use the word most. Let's look at our examples. That's a lot of words, but once we look at the examples, I think that'll all make sense. For the comparative adjective, we could say Jan is stronger than Mike. That's where we talked about adding the ER to the end of the word. And then the rest of the sentence says, but Anna is the strongest of the three. That one is the superlative adjective, and we're adding EST to the end. The first part with the comparative adjective, stronger, with the ER, it's just comparing Jan and Mike. So those are the two things that are being compared. That's why it's a comparative adjective, stronger, because it's just comparing Jan and Mike. There's only two people that it's comparing. But if you look at the rest of that sentence, Anna is the strongest of the three. So when there's more than two, that's when we use what's called a superlative adjective. We put EST on the end, or use the word most. We could say, but Anna is the most strong of the three. We could do that. All right, so that's our example. Let's go through some of these sentences, and we'll do a few together. We're going to read each sentence, write the correct form of the adjective in the parentheses on the line. I do want you to write these down, okay? I don't want you to just write ER or EST. You can write the whole word. Okie dokie. So number 1 in parentheses, it says fast. That's the word we're going to use. But the sentence says, sometimes it was blank to go around a mountain than to hike over it. So it's listing two ways to travel the mountain, right? We could either go around it or hike over it. That's two things that we're comparing, so this must be a comparative adjective, and that means we're going to add an ER to the end, so we can say sometimes it was faster to go around a mountain than to hike over it. Got it? Okay, let's look at number 2. The word in parentheses is old. That's the word we're using. The blank child in a family usually had more responsibilities than the younger children. So we're comparing an old child, so in the family to other younger children. And it says children, so I'm assuming that there's more than 2 siblings. We've got a family with 3 or more children, right? So that's going to be a superlative adjective, and you need to add est to the word old. So we'd put the oldest child in a family usually had more responsibilities than the younger children. Got it? Okay, we're going to do one more together, and then I'm going to trust you to do the rest. Number 3, dark is in parentheses, says at night the wilderness was blank than the towns people had left behind. Okay, so what are we comparing here? The wilderness and the townspeople left behind. There's just 2 things that we're comparing, right? What does that mean? Comparative adjective, you're right. So with comparative adjectives, we add ER, you got it. At night, the wilderness was darker than the townspeople had left behind. Awesome. Okay, you can do the last 3 on your own. You've got this. If you have questions, leave them in the comments.